Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Snipes. If you're just checking out the channel for the first time, make sure to go click that link in the description, the Discord link, because you can ask me any questions. You get a hold of me all the time, and I try to answer as much as I possibly can. We do have a Siege Academy section on there, so if you have questions about anything game-related, you can definitely ask me there. Anyways, without further ado, if you didn't see from the title, it's going to be how to cast in Rainbow Six Siege. Now, how to cast in Rainbow Six Siege is going to be a video that's going to be focused on Siege casting only. Also, disclaimer, I am not a professional caster. Obviously, you don't see me on Pro League, but I have done a couple weeks of Challenger League, and I have done a couple qualifiers for different events and the CL quals also. And overall, I think I have a good idea of how this is going to go and how to cast, but just take that into mind. And some of this is very subjective to what I think, so it might not be 100% correct, but I think you'll understand what is and what isn't 100% correct all the time. Now, without further ado, there is a lot of topics, so I will probably split this video up into sections and create sort of a mini series out of it. I don't know exactly right now, but let's see how much we get through today, and we're going to let you know when the next one decides to come out. So for the first topic, you need to have good vocabulary, and you also need to enunciate those words that you're saying, because a lot of times, especially when you get sort of to the last 30 seconds, a lot of casters tend to speed up how they're talking, not necessarily slowing down and sort of building up tension, and it's sort of just a preference on how they cast. But you will hear a lot of professional casters, when they start going faster, they don't really miss a beat on how they're talking. You can still understand all of the words they're saying. Now, there are some who do kind of go over the rail, and you can't really understand it at some point, but essentially you want to be able to make sure that you can understand what exactly you're saying, and it just doesn't sound like gibberish and doesn't sound like just this weird mumbo jumbo that's getting put together. Also, having a good vocabulary comes down to, you need to make sure that what you're saying doesn't keep repeating itself. You need to be eloquent with what you're saying. You need to utilize everything you possibly can, and this comes down to learning. A lot of times you'll learn it just from things when you're watching videos, when you're watching other people cast, when you're watching other games get casted. You'll tend to learn a lot of phrasing, a lot of different things that might come from those casts, and that's part of it too, is you need to analyze sort of how other people are casting, so that way you can kind of figure out what words and what things you think you can kind of throw in. One of the things that I think been used a lot in Rainbow Six Siege is sort of a rock stuck in a hard place. Now, they say a rock stuck in a hard place because it means basically there's no way for this person to get out. Pretty much fight to the death is this person's option. Now, that's the meaning behind the phrasing, but it's a great phrase to use that doesn't get used super often. I'd say it gets used maybe once a cast, if not every other cast. It depends on who's casting. Obviously, there's different casters for different matches. They might use it over and over. It just really depends. But overall, I think that if you can get your phrasing down and look up different phrases, seriously, use your experience that you have. Flynn, who's a professional caster, uses hockey references all the time. Now, he does acknowledge when it's a hockey reference that maybe everyone might not understand, but that's totally okay if you're able to explain something really quickly. Try not to use something that's so far out there that no one's gonna get it, but keep it relevant to what you're saying, keep relevant to the game, because a lot of times that's how new phrasing gets put into the game. Now, let's talk about what a duo and basically how that all works. So you have a shoutcaster, and you normally have what is called a color caster or an analyst. Now, obviously, a shoutcaster is exactly what it is. It's the person who's pretty much going to build up all of the hype within the round. You're going to feel like you're actually at the event. This isn't someone that basically makes you feel like you're just, hey, I'm just watching something on TV. No, you will feel like you're actually sitting behind the computer screen of a monitor at the LAN event, like you're almost actually there. That's what you want to feel to be a good shoutcaster. That's exactly what you want your audience to feel. Now, great examples of this is Flynn and Stokes. I think they're very good, and they're upcoming, and I'd say upcoming, but they do all sorts of casting for Pro League now, and they've been in more and more events, and you can definitely see why, because the way that they bring the hype into these rounds is a fantastic job, and they keep their voices low. You don't want to scream at the top of your lungs and peak the volume and make everyone's ears ring. No one likes that. That won't be fun. When you keep your voice low and you sort of give it that guttural sound almost, it makes it a lot better, and it makes it a lot more tense, because then you kind of get the essence of screaming, but it's more so tense, and I'll show an example of that here.
It looks like that Arsenal drop might be a really good take. A lot of pressure on Biologic, but he's eliminated by Fultz. That's 2 for Fultz in this round. TSM is falling apart in their comfort zone. Where can they find success? Pojo Man gets the first kill. The gas canister not denying. The second one will have to come out, and that will be successful. Chala comes off the stick, and he's eliminated by Pojo with the only kills for his team. Achieved on low HP. Pojo Man sees a third. Gets it. Nice shot. SMG-11, such limited ammo, but he can find 2 more. And oh, Bojo Man's absolutely insane. He's going for the 5th, but he doesn't even need it. The time. What a clutch from Bojo Man. He's back.
Now that's a fantastic example of Kickstar sort of using his voice in a very low tone, and rather than trying to peek out your ears, because he has a higher voice like I do. I think I don't have a very deep voice like Flynn or Stokes do, and when you have a deep voice like that, it's a lot easier to get sort of those lows and create that tension, and that's why they do a lot of the shoutcasting. But that was a great example of him being able to keep his voice lower. He didn't hear your ears get ringing or anything like that because he didn't peak the volume, kept his voice very low and very, very guttural to be able to bring out the tension in that round. Now, taking a look at the analyst side of this duo, the analyst will typically break down a round. He's going to figure out where the attack fell apart, how a defense got intercepted, how they got split, how they got taken out one by one. They're going to give you all of those tidbits that you might not have known. Also, an analyst is going to be someone who's normally, before a match, is going to do a lot of their homework and sort of figure out what needs to be done ahead of time. Now, I'm going to go over some of that stuff in a little bit, but just to give you an idea, it's stuff like building storylines, figuring out stats that might matter later in the round, and things like hot streaks, or say if you've won a lot of majors or won a lot of events in a row. These are things that an analyst will bring up because they did a lot of homework and a lot of notes are in front of them right now. Also, they're going to break down sort of the ends of the rounds. A lot of times, the shoutcaster will sort of finish off the round, either 45 seconds, last 30 seconds of the round. That will be usually the shoutcaster's position. Every so often, they will switch off, but you will have a shoutcaster sort of finish off the round, and then during sort of the prep phase into the action phase, as they're picking ups and things like that, you'll have the analyst sort of breaking down the round, or at least just adding on what they need to do better this round, what they can improve, who they can bring, those sort of tidbits. That's what a color caster does. Now, you want to make sure, another thing about duos is that you're having more of a conversation and not just sort of a one-way street where you're the only one driving and you're not letting anyone past you because you're driving so slow. And what I mean by that is basically, don't take over the whole stream, don't take over the whole casting. If you're going over like 2 or 3 minutes, first off, that's way too long for Rainbow Six Siege. I'm sure no one wants to hear you for 2 or 3 minutes straight, unless you're solo casting. But a lot of it is, my rule was always, if I'm going like 30 seconds, I'll just pass it off. Now, the best way to pass it off is sort of end your sentence, and you can sort of tell when someone ends their sentence, and then sort of 1 to 2 seconds later, let your co-caster pick it up. That's a great way to do it. And even if you ask a question to your co-caster and creating a conversation, that's totally fine too. But let your co-caster get in on the action, because they might see something that you don't see because you kind of get tunnel vision while you're casting. And you also might have something like, hey, this is a great conversational piece, let's continue this, or they'll completely take it down a different route depending on what it exactly is. Now, another thing about working in a duos means that you can build storylines, and you know why people love storylines? Because they feel more it's more personal to them. Everything that they're watching, it's more personal to them. And I think that's a big part of why I love casting, is you can build storylines, and it doesn't matter what it is. Whether it's an underdog team, you have this crazy empire of a team that's just taking team after team and not losing anything. G2 was like that for a while, and that was sort of the reigning champions. That was their story. And you had a team like TSM who had to go up against them, and Stokes kept saying it's a YouTuber and a bunch of misfits that came from Xbox. That's their storyline that Stokes gave them, and they followed it up. And you're going, what? Bolo's on TSM? He's a YouTuber. How does that happen? It's things like that. It's where you feel like, I know this guy, how did he get here? That's the best part about storylines, is you feel more personally attached to what you're watching. Now, also another thing that I want to point out is with those storylines, you can also kind of create this sort of giving stats to sort of analyze what that storyline really means, because you have a team like when EG and G2 played back in 2018 Invitational, G2 pretty much did a reverse sweep, and that was back when they're called Penta, but they did a reverse sweep. So everyone knew G2 as from then on was a team that reverse sweeped EG. They were down to the very last map, and instead of going down, they brought it back. And that's why I love storylines so much, is because you can build it however you want, and then you can do whatever you want with it. You can honestly, that's part of the analysis work that you do ahead of time. You do all the legwork to sort of see what are the stats of these players, what is their life, what is the history of the team, what have they done, what haven't they done, do they pick anyone up, do they drop anyone, what exactly is all the drama. If someone gets into drama, it's things like that that if you're very aware of all that stuff and you're even more in the community, you'll notice everything very quickly what happens. And a lot of it gets brought up in cast, especially when people get dropped and picked up. A lot of times that gets touched on so much, especially in the games that they first get in. And I think that all the casters that we currently have do a great job of that. Anyways, guys, I hope that this was a good first starting video. I'm going to try to figure out what exactly I need to fill in for this video on the next videos in the series, but I hope that this was a great starting point, and I hope that you guys learned something. Let me know if you have any questions down below. I'll try to answer them as best as I possibly can, and it'll probably build off and give me more ideas for the next video, but that's going to wrap things up for today. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it, and this is going to be Josh Snipes signing off.